The Galactic War Tournament was the biggest and deadliest competition in the universe. Only the strongest warriors from different planets were allowed to fight. But there was one rule that no one could break: humans were banned. A long time ago, humans had fought in the tournament, but they were too unpredictable, too dangerous. The alien rulers feared them, so they erased humans from the competition forever. No human had stepped into the arena for 100 years. But tonight, everything was going to change. A masked fighter walked into the grand arena. The crowd roared as he stepped onto the battlefield, his black armor reflecting the bright lights above. His name was Shadow, and no one knew where he came from. He had fought many battles before, defeating some of the strongest warriors in the galaxy. The audience loved him, but they had no idea he was hiding a secret: he was human. The tournament had strict security, but Shadow had found a way to enter. He had stolen the identity of a dead alien warrior and used a special suit to hide his human features. If anyone discovered the truth, he would not only be disqualified, he would be executed. But he had no choice. He was not here for fame or glory. He was here to prove that humans were still the greatest fighters in the universe. The first fight began. His opponent was a massive creature from planet Zarkon, covered in thick blue scales with razor-sharp claws. The creature roared, ready to tear Shadow apart. The fight started, and the Zarkonian attacked first, swinging its huge claws toward Shadow's head. But Shadow was fast. He ducked, rolled to the side, and struck back with a powerful kick to the creature's ribs. The alien stumbled but did not fall. It came at him again, but this time, Shadow was ready. He dodged every attack with perfect timing, then delivered a final, brutal punch to the creature's jaw. The Zarkonian collapsed. The crowd went silent for a moment, then erupted into cheers. Shadow had won. As the tournament continued, Shadow kept winning. He fought creatures with metal skin, beasts with 6 arms, and aliens with deadly energy weapons. But no matter how strong they were, he was always one step ahead. His speed, intelligence, and skill made him unstoppable. However, with every victory, the tournament officials began to suspect something was wrong. They studied his movements, his fighting style. Something about him was different. Something familiar. In the semifinals, Shadow faced an elite warrior known as Siren, a ruthless alien general who had never lost a fight. Siren had been watching Shadow carefully. He was suspicious. Before the fight, he looked into Shadow's eyes and smirked. "I know what you are," he whispered. Shadow felt his heart pound, but he stayed silent. The fight began, and Siren attacked with incredible speed. Shadow barely dodged the first strike. This was different. Siren was faster, stronger, and smarter than any opponent he had faced before. Every time Shadow moved, Siren countered. It was as if he could predict his every move. For the first time in the tournament, Shadow was struggling. Siren smiled. "You fight like them," he said. "Like the warriors they banned long ago. You fight like a human." Shadow's mind raced. If Siren knew the truth, it was over. He had to finish this fight before his secret got out. He took a deep breath and changed his strategy. Instead of dodging, he went on the attack, moving faster than ever before. Punch, kick, strike, he unleashed everything he had. Siren blocked most of it, but then Shadow did something unexpected. He faked a left hook, but spun and kicked Siren in the side of the head. The alien stumbled. Shadow didn't waste a second. He delivered one final powerful blow to Siren's chest, sending him crashing to the ground. The crowd went wild. Shadow had won again. But as he turned to leave the arena, Siren laughed. "They will find out," he said. "And when they do, you will not leave here alive." Shadow knew he had little time. The final match was coming, and soon the whole galaxy would know the truth. He returned to his chambers, where a small device lay on the table. He picked it up and activated it. A holographic image of a woman appeared. She had kind eyes and a sad smile. "You are the last hope," she said. "Win, and they will have to acknowledge us. Lose, and humanity will remain forgotten." Shadow clenched his fists. He would not fail. The final battle arrived. The arena was packed. Millions of aliens from across the galaxy watched as Shadow faced his ultimate opponent, a monstrous cybernetic warlord known as Draxus. Towering at 10 feet, covered in metal armor, Draxus was the reigning champion. No one had ever defeated him. The fight began, and Draxus attacked with terrifying power. His metal fists crashed into the ground where Shadow had stood just seconds before. Shadow moved fast, avoiding the attacks, but Draxus was relentless. One heavy punch grazed Shadow's shoulder, sending him flying backward. Pain shot through his body, but he forced himself to stand. He could not give up. He focused, waiting for the right moment. Draxus charged, and at the last second, Shadow jumped, landing on the warlord's back. He struck the weak points in the armor, hitting again and again until Draxus roared in pain. The warlord grabbed him and threw him across the arena. Shadow hit the ground hard, but he pushed himself up. He had one last chance. Draxus rushed toward him for the final attack. Shadow stood still, waiting. At the last second, he ducked and rolled, dodging the massive blow. Draxus lost balance for just a moment, enough time for Shadow to strike with all his strength. His fist connected with the warlord's exposed neck. Draxus froze, then collapsed. Silence filled the arena. Then, the crowd erupted into the loudest cheers Shadow had ever heard. He had done it. He was the champion. But before he could celebrate, alarms blared. The tournament officials had discovered the truth. "He is human," a voice shouted. Gasps filled the arena. The celebration turned into chaos. Guards rushed toward him. Shadow looked around. He had proven what he came to prove. Now, he had to escape. With one deep breath, he sprinted toward the edge of the arena, leaped onto a hovering platform, and disappeared into the night. No one knew where he went. Some believed he died that night. Others believed he was still out there, waiting for the right time to return. But one thing was certain: humanity was no longer forgotten. The legend of the last human fighter had begun. The Galactic War Tournament was the deadliest competition in the universe, where only the strongest warriors from different planets fought for ultimate glory. But there was one rule humans were not allowed. Long ago, they had competed, but their unpredictable tactics and refusal to follow rules made them a threat. The galactic leaders declared them too dangerous and banned them forever. Now, humans were nothing more than a forgotten race, laughed at by the galaxy. But tonight, the tournament was about to witness something it had never seen before. Deep inside the tournament's massive battle arena, a new competitor entered the ring. He was tall, covered in a sleek silver exosuit, and moved with unnatural precision. His name was Prime XA, and he was officially registered as an advanced combat AI from a distant planet. No one suspected that inside the machine, controlling every move, was a human. His name was Riker, and he was the first human to step into the tournament in over 100 years. He wasn't here for fame or fortune. He was here to prove that humans still belonged in the fight. The crowd cheered as the first match began. Prime X faced a brutal warrior from the volcanic planet Drathor, a massive beast with molten lava flowing through its veins. It roared, its claws glowing red-hot as it charged forward. Riker stayed calm inside his hidden control chamber, his hands gripping the neural controls of the AI suit. The moment the beast attacked, he made Prime X sidestep with perfect timing, dodging the deadly blow. The creature swung again, but Riker was faster. With a precise movement, he made Prime X strike, landing a devastating hit to the creature's ribs. The beast stumbled, and before it could recover, Riker launched a final attack, a rapid series of punches that sent it crashing to the ground. The crowd roared in excitement. The AI had won. As Riker continued through the tournament. He fought warriors with razor-sharp tails, energy-based lifeforms, and robotic champions with inhuman speed. But no matter how strong they were, Prime X always had the upper hand. Behind the scenes, the tournament officials began to notice something strange. No AI had ever fought like this before. AI warriors were strong, fast, and strategic, but they lacked creativity. Prime X, however, was different. It adapted too quickly, responded too cleverly, and made split-second decisions that no machine should be able to make. The officials started to suspect that something was wrong. By the time Prime X reached the semifinals, the tournament's top analyst, a cybernetic alien named Vectron, was already investigating. He watched every fight carefully, studying the AI's movements. Then, he ran a deep scan on Prime X's systems. What he discovered sent a shockwave through the tournament's security network. There was no AI inside Prime X. It was being controlled, and the neural signals controlling it matched something that should have been impossible: human brainwaves. Vectron wasted no time. He reported the discovery to the tournament masters, who were furious. They could not let a human compete, not after what had happened in the past. But they also could not expose the truth immediately, not without causing chaos. Millions of viewers across the galaxy were watching. If they found out a human had made it this far, it could change everything. The Masters decided to let Prime X fight in the final match, but after the battle, they would expose the truth and execute the pilot behind the machine. Riker had no idea that his time was running out. The final match was unlike anything he had faced before. His opponent was Korok, the reigning champion, a monstrous alien with 4 arms, thick armor-like skin, and a blade that could cut through anything. As soon as the battle began, Korok attacked with brutal force. Riker had faced powerful enemies before, but this was different. Korok was faster and stronger than any opponent he had fought. Every move Riker made, Korok countered instantly. The battle became a deadly dance, with both fighters matching each other blow for blow. Riker knew he had to take risks. He made Prime X move unpredictably, dodging and striking with incredible speed. The crowd was on the edge of their seats, watching in awe as the AI fought like nothing they had ever seen. But inside the control chamber, Riker was struggling. His body was exhausted, his mind pushing beyond its limits. He could feel the neural strain of controlling the suit for so long. He had to end this now. He waited for the perfect moment. Korok lunged forward, swinging his massive blade, and Riker dodged at the last second. Then, with everything he had left, he made Prime X leap into the air, twisting in mid-motion, and land a final, crushing blow to Korok's skull. The champion staggered, his eyes flickering with shock. Then, he fell to the ground. Silence filled the arena. Then, the crowd exploded with cheers. Prime X had won. Riker had done the impossible. He had proven that humans could still stand among the greatest warriors in the universe. But before he could celebrate, alarms blared across the arena. The tournament masters stood, their voices amplified across the battlefield. "Attention!" One of them roared. "The tournament has been infiltrated by a criminal. Prime X is not an AI. It is being controlled by a human." Gasps filled the stadium. The crowd turned from cheering to murmuring in confusion. Security forces rushed onto the battlefield, weapons ready. Riker's heart pounded. They had found out. He had come so far, and now they were going to kill him. But he wasn't going to let that happen. He took a deep breath and activated the final command on his control panel. The AI suit locked into combat mode, and Prime X moved on its own, striking down the guards in a blur of motion. The crowd erupted into chaos as Riker forced his way through the security forces, running toward the edge of the battlefield. He had planned for this moment. Before entering the tournament, he had set up an escape route. He activated a hidden command, and high above, a small cloaked spacecraft roared to life. It shot toward the arena, breaking through the security defenses. Riker sprinted toward the extraction point, dodging fire from the guards. Just as they were about to surround him, his ship arrived. The hatch opened, and he jumped inside. The doors slammed shut behind him, and the ship rocketed out of the arena, disappearing into the vastness of space. The tournament officials were left in shock. A human had just won the greatest competition in the universe and escaped. The entire galaxy had seen it happen. They had tried to erase humans from history, but Riker had just rewritten the future. He had proven that humans were not weak, not forgotten, and certainly not broken. Somewhere in the vast darkness of space, Riker smiled. He wasn't just the last human fighter. He was the beginning of something new. The The Galactic War Tournament was the greatest battlefield in the universe, a place where only the strongest warriors from countless planets fought for honor, power, and survival. Millions of spectators from across the stars gathered to witness these brutal clashes. But there was one rule that could never be broken. Humans were banned. The Council of Galactic Rulers had erased their existence from the competition over a century ago, declaring them extinct, unworthy, and too dangerous. To the rest of the galaxy, humans were nothing more than a forgotten race, lost in history. But tonight, that history was about to be rewritten. As the next fighter entered the arena, the crowd roared with excitement. The competitor was known as Nyx, a masked warrior wrapped in dark, battle-worn armor. His movements were smooth yet precise, carrying the confidence of someone who had fought countless battles before. His file said he was from the distant world of Valtor 7, a planet known for breeding fierce gladiators. No one questioned his identity. No one suspected the truth. Nyx wasn't from Valtor 7. He wasn't from any known planet. He was something that shouldn't exist. He was human. Rylan Voss, the man behind the mask, had spent his entire life hiding. Born in the ruins of Earth, a world long abandoned and left to decay, he had grown up believing he was the last of his kind. But he had never accepted the idea that humans were weak, that they had no place in the universe. He had trained in secret, preparing for the day he would prove the galaxy wrong. And now, standing in the arena of the most dangerous tournament ever created, he was ready to remind the universe that humans were still here. The first match began. Rylan faced a brutal reptilian warrior from the war-driven planet of Zarkon. The creature stood at least 8 feet tall, covered in thick, armored scales. It let out a deafening roar before charging at him with terrifying speed. Rylan didn't flinch. He had studied every species, every fighting style. He knew how to counter them all. As the reptilian beast swung its massive claws, Rylan dodged effortlessly, moving like a shadow. With one swift motion, he leapt onto its back and struck a precise nerve cluster near its neck. The creature let out a final growl before collapsing. The crowd fell silent. Then, after a brief moment, the tournament continued, and with each match, Rylan carved his way through the ranks. He fought warriors made of pure energy, machines built for destruction, and alien champions who had never been defeated. But none of them could match his speed, his strategy, or his unpredictable human instincts. The masked warrior known as Nyx was becoming the tournament's biggest mystery. The audience loved him. The officials, however, were growing suspicious. As the semifinals approached, the Galactic Council ordered an investigation. Who was this fighter? His movements were too unique. His combat style was unlike any known species. And most disturbing of all, his tactics resembled something they had seen before, something they had erased long ago. In the shadows of the tournament headquarters, an elite investigator named Varun Kaur was assigned to uncover the truth. He analyzed every fight, every movement. His advanced scanners tried to detect Nyx's biology, but the armor blocked every attempt. Yet deep down, Kaur felt something unsettling. He had studied ancient battle records, the fights of the long-banned human warriors. And now, for the first time in a century, he was seeing those same fighting patterns again. The final match arrived. The arena was filled with energy, millions of spectators waiting for the ultimate battle. Rylan's final opponent was Lord Sithar, an undefeated warlord feared across the galaxy. Sithar was no ordinary fighter. He was a bio-enhanced juggernaut, standing over 10 feet tall with a body reinforced by cybernetic implants. He had never lost. As the battle began, Rylan knew this fight would be different. Sithar was faster than expected, his attacks calculated and devastating. Every time Rylan dodged, Sithar adjusted, matching his speed. The warlord was studying him, learning his patterns. For the first time in the tournament, Rylan was being pushed to his limits. But humans had one advantage: no other species had adaptation. Rylan switched his tactics instantly, fighting unpredictably. He moved in erratic patterns, changing styles in ways that no machine or alien could process. He became a ghost, striking from unexpected angles, avoiding Sithar's counters. Blow after blow, he weakened the warlord's defenses until, finally, he he found an opening. With one final, devastating strike, Ryland drove his fist into Scyther's exposed neural core. The warlord's eyes flickered, his body collapsing with a thunderous crash. Silence filled the arena. Then, an eruption of cheers. He had done it. He had won. But before he could celebrate, alarms blared across the stadium. The Galactic Council stood in their high seats, their voices echoing through the arena. "Nyx is not who he claims to be," the announcer declared. "We have uncovered the truth. This fighter is human." Gasps spread through the crowd like wildfire. The warriors, the spectators, the officials, everyone stared in shock. The impossible had happened. A human had fought, had won. Security forces stormed the battlefield, weapons locked onto Ryland. He had prepared for this. He activated his armor's emergency override, sending out a blinding shockwave that knocked the guards back. Then he ran. High above the arena, his escape ship was already waiting, hidden within the chaos. As blaster fire rained down around him, he sprinted across the battlefield, dodging attacks, leaping over obstacles. The crowd, confused and divided, watched in awe. Some called for his capture. Others, for the first time in history, cheered for the human. As he reached the extraction point, Ryland turned for one last look at the stadium. He had done more than win a tournament. He had shattered the lie that humans were gone, that they were weak. The galaxy had tried to erase his kind. But they had failed. With one final leap, he boarded his ship, the engines roaring to life. The last human warrior, the man who shouldn't exist, disappeared into the stars, leaving behind a universe that would never forget him again. The Galactic War Tournament was more than just a battle. It was a war disguised as entertainment, a battlefield where the strongest species clashed and only the most ruthless survived. For centuries, it had remained the greatest event in the universe, ruled by an unbreakable law: no humans allowed. The Council had wiped them out from history, ensuring they would never return. But tonight, something would change. A betrayal was about to shake the foundation of the galaxy, and no one saw it coming. Deep in the heart of the tournament's control center, Commander Valric, the chief enforcer of the Council, stood before a massive holographic screen. His cold, reptilian eyes scanned the battle records of a fighter who had defied all expectations. The competitor, known as Spectre, had risen through the tournament ranks with unnatural speed, taking down champions that should have been impossible to defeat. There was something about Spectre's style, something too precise, too unpredictable. And that's when Valric saw it. Humans. The realization hit him like a shockwave. The way Spectre fought, the way he adapted mid-battle, the way he exploited every weakness, it was unmistakable. The only species that had ever fought like this had been erased from history a century ago. But if Spectre was human, then that meant only one thing. Someone had betrayed the Council. Someone had smuggled a human into the most secure tournament in the universe. Meanwhile, inside the battle arena, Spectre stood victorious over another fallen champion. His armor was cracked, his breathing heavy, but his focus remained sharp. Beneath his mask, his real name was Kale Drayan, the last survivor of a lost Earth colony. He had spent his life in hiding, training in the darkest corners of space, waiting for his chance to prove that humans were not weak. That moment had come. He had infiltrated the tournament, broken every law, and now he was only one fight away from the championship. But he was not alone. In the shadows of the arena's highest chamber, a figure watched him from a private viewing deck. General Corvan, one of the highest-ranking leaders of the Galactic Council, had been the one to smuggle Kyle into the tournament. He had risked everything, going against his own kind, because he knew the truth: humans were never the problem. The Council had feared them, erased them, because they could not control them. But Corvan believed they were the missing piece in the galaxy's future. He had made a secret deal with Kale, ensuring his entry into the tournament. But what Kyle didn't know was that Corvan's plan had already been discovered. Back in the control center, alarms blared. Security forces were mobilized. Valric's voice echoed through the halls. "We have been betrayed. A human walks among us." The stadium erupted into chaos. Warriors who had once cheered for Spectre now turned their eyes to him with suspicion. The crowd's excitement shifted into shock and anger. Security guards rushed toward the battlefield. Cale's heart pounded. He had expected danger, but not this soon. He glanced up toward Corvin's private chamber, searching for a signal, some confirmation that their plan was still in motion. But what he saw instead made his blood run cold. Corvan stood with his hands raised in surrender, and beside him was Valric, a victorious smirk on his reptilian face. The betrayal had already happened. Cale barely had time to react before the arena's defenses activated. The ground beneath him shifted, force fields sprang to life, and massive mechanical sentinels emerged from hidden compartments, their weapons locking onto him. He was trapped. The tournament was no longer a competition. It had become an execution. Valric's voice echoed through the stadium. "You've all been deceived. This warrior is not one of us. He is human, a relic of the past. And the one who brought him here, General Corvan, is a traitor to the Council. Let this night be a reminder, humans will never rise again." Corvan remained silent, his face unreadable. Cale felt his rage building. He had trusted Corvan, believed in his vision of a new future. But now, standing alone in the center of an arena filled with enemies, he realized the truth. Corvan had never planned to help him win. He had used him as a pawn, a distraction. This wasn't about proving humanity's strength. It was about exposing them, bringing them into the open so the Council could wipe them out for good. But if Cale was going down, he wouldn't go down quietly. He moved before the sentinels could fire, sprinting toward the nearest pillar and using it as cover. His mind worked at lightning speed. Every exit was blocked. Every warrior in the arena was now his enemy. But there was still one way out. His ship hidden beneath the arena's underbelly was still functional. If he could reach it, he could escape. But he would have to fight through an entire army to do it. The sentinels opened fire, energy blasts tearing through the ground where he had just been. Cale leaped into the air, dodging with inhuman precision. He landed behind one of the mechanical giants and tore out a critical power module, causing it to collapse in a heap of sparks. The crowd gasped. They had expected him to be captured in seconds. Instead, he was fighting back. Warriors from the audience jumped into the arena, eager to claim the glory of taking down the last human. Cale met them head-on. He moved like a storm, his fists striking like lightning, his movements too fast for the eye to follow. One by one, his enemies fell. But there were too many. His body ached, his energy fading. He needed to get out now. Then, an explosion rocked the stadium. The underground section of the arena burst open as Cale's ship roared to life, breaking free from its hidden chamber. His escape had arrived. He fought his way toward it, his vision blurring from exhaustion. The sentinels closed in, Valric's voice screaming over the intercom, "Do not let him escape." Cale reached the ship's entrance, his hands gripping the edge as he pulled himself inside. The engines flared, the ship lifting off just as blaster fire rained down upon it. As he soared into the sky, he looked back one last time. Valric stood on the edge of the ruined battlefield, his expression filled with fury. And beside him, Corvan remained still, his betrayal complete. The galaxy had turned against him. The Council had exposed him. The universe wanted him dead. But Cale was still alive. As his ship disappeared into the stars, he made a silent promise. The tournament had been just the beginning. He would return. And when he did, the galaxy would know the true power of the humans they had tried to erase. The greatest betrayal in history had just set the stage for the greatest revenge the universe would ever witness. The Galactic War Tournament was the grandest event in the universe, where the strongest warriors from different planets fought for ultimate glory. The arena was filled with millions of spectators, roaring in excitement as the best fighters clashed in brutal combat. But there was one unbreakable rule: no humans allowed. The Council had banned them a century ago, erasing their existence from the battlefield. Humans were considered weak, extinct, unworthy of standing among the galaxy's greatest warriors. No one expected that to change. No one believed they would ever see a human fight again. But tonight, everything was about to change. In the depths of the arena, in a chamber where the next fighters waited for their turn, a lone warrior sat in silence. His armor was different from the others, sleek, unmarked, without any symbols of allegiance. His face remained hidden beneath a dark helmet. No homeworld was listed, no background. Just a nameless contender who had somehow made it to the final rounds. The other fighters had dismissed him. He was too quiet, too unknown. They believed he would fall in the first match. But one by one, he had defeated every challenger in his path. He didn't fight with brute strength like the warlords of Zypher. He didn't rely on cybernetic enhancements like the champions of Valter 9. His style was something else, something unpredictable. He was fast, too fast. His movements were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. And that was because Shadow wasn't like the others. He was human. His real name was Orion Kale, and he had spent his entire life preparing for this moment. He had been born in the ruins of Earth, a world that the galaxy had abandoned. Raised in secrecy by a group of survivors, he had trained in the lost arts of combat, learning to fight in ways the galaxy had forgotten. The universe believed humans were gone, that they could never rise again. Orion was here to prove them wrong. The announcer's voice thundered across the arena. The semi-final round begins. The unknown warrior, Shadow, will face the undefeated champion of Drachnos Prime, the Destroyer. The crowd erupted as the gates opened, revealing a towering beast covered in thick obsidian armor. The Destroyer was feared across the galaxy, a warrior who had crushed every opponent with brutal efficiency. He had never lost. He had never even been injured. And now, he was about to face the fighter no one had expected to make it this far. Asa Orion stepped onto the battlefield. He could feel the weight of millions of eyes upon him. The crowd wanted a massacre. They wanted the Destroyer to rip him apart. But he had other plans. The match began. The Destroyer charged forward, swinging a massive warhammer that could crush stone in a single blow. Orion didn't move until the last second. Then, with a blur of motion, he sidestepped effortlessly, the hammer smashing into the ground where he had stood. Before the Destroyer could react, Orion struck a precise blow to a weak point in his armor. The massive warrior staggered back, shocked. No one had ever dodged his attacks so easily. No one had ever made him stumble. The crowd went silent. The Destroyer roared in fury and attacked again, swinging wildly, his strength shaking the entire battlefield. But Orion was faster. He ducked, dodged, weaved between attacks like a phantom. Every movement was calculated, every strike designed to expose a weakness. The Destroyer grew desperate, his rage blinding him. That was his mistake. Orion saw his opening. With a single lightning-fast strike, he delivered a final blow to the creature's exposed throat. The Destroyer collapsed. The silence in the arena lasted only a second before it exploded into chaos. Impossible, the announcer shouted. The Destroyer has fallen. The unknown warrior, Shadow, is moving to the final round. The entire galaxy was now watching. Who was this mysterious fighter? How had he defeated a warrior no one else could? The council members in their high seats exchanged uneasy glances. Something was wrong. This fighter was different. His movements were familiar. Deep in the control chamber, High Commander Varric analyzed the footage, replaying the fight over and over. Then he saw it the way Shadow moved, the way he fought. It was impossible, but there was no doubt. This was human combat. This fighter. Varric growled. He's one of them. Alarms blared. Security forces mobilized. The council could not allow a human to rise. They had buried that species for a reason. If the galaxy learned that a human had made it this far, it would shake everything. The final match had to be stopped. But Orion had already stepped onto the battlefield one last time. His final opponent was the reigning champion of the tournament, a being known only as Vortan. A monstrous entity made of pure energy, Vortan had held the title for nearly a decade. No physical attack had ever harmed him. He was considered invincible. The council was certain Orion would fall here. But Orion had studied Vortan's fights. He knew the truth. Vortan wasn't invincible. He had one weakness, a split-second delay when he shifted between forms. It was almost impossible to exploit. Almost. The battle began. Vortan attacked with blinding speed, his energy blasts tearing through the arena. Orion moved like a ghost, avoiding every strike, watching, waiting. He needed the right moment. The crowd was on the edge of their seats. Security forces were preparing to intervene. Then, it happened. Vortan shifted forms, his energy flickering for just a heartbeat. That was all Orion needed. He lunged forward, his blade slicing through the unstable core. A deafening explosion erupted across the stadium. When the dust settled, only one figure remained standing. Orion Kale, the last human. The champion no one saw coming. The arena was silent. The council was speechless. The galaxy had just witnessed the impossible. Then, before anyone could react, Orion raised his mask, revealing his face to the universe. Gasps filled the stadium. He wanted them to see. He wanted them to know the truth. The humans were not gone. They had never been weak. And now, one of them had conquered the greatest battlefield in the galaxy. The security forces rushed in, weapons drawn. The council would never let a human live after this. But Orion had planned for this moment. From the shadows, hidden allies triggered a massive EMP blast, shutting down the arena's defenses. Orion sprinted toward the nearest escape route, his ship waiting for him in the skies above. As he took off, disappearing into the stars, one thing was certain. The galaxy would never forget this day. The legend of the last human warrior had begun, and no matter how hard the council tried, they could never erase him now. The champion no one saw coming had just changed history forever.